Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. You guys have sent in some fascinating stuff about strange archaeological finds this time.
It is a really interesting collection
Yeah, we've got excerpts from books and articles. We even got a few old newspaper clippings.
of a real mixed bag.
It's like a detective's case file for a mystery stretching back thousands of years.
That's a great way to put it. And the mystery here is that all these sources revolve around objects that just completely contradict what we think we know about the conventional timeline of human civilization.
Exactly. We're going deep into the world of out-of-place artifacts. You know, things that just shouldn't exist where they were found.
If we're to believe everything we've been told about history.
Right. So our mission today is to sift through all this evidence, spotlight the most mind-blowing discoveries,
Yeah.
and then let you decide what to make of it all.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. So to understand why these finds are so strange, we need to remember how we usually picture the timeline of human civilization.
Yeah, that's important context, isn't it?
I mean, we tend to think of human civilization as being relatively recent, but what if these artifacts are hinting at a much longer and more complex human story?
That's the question we're grappling with.
Okay, so let's start with an artifact that was discovered back in 1870 in Illinois. A coin was found 114 feet underground during a well drilling operation.
A coin, huh?
You know, a coin. Now, at first glance, you might think, okay, a coin underground, so what?
Right.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The depth that coin was found at suggests it could be incredibly old.
How old are we talking?
Well, recent geological dating estimates suggest the materials from that depth are somewhere between 100,000 and 150,000 years old.
Wow, that's way before we think advanced civilizations existed in North America.
Exactly. And to make things even weirder, it's not like some crude token or anything. It's about the size of a U.S. quarter, made from an unidentified copper alloy. But the detail is what's truly remarkable. It has artwork and hieroglyphs, and they're not engraved or stamped. They were etched, most likely with acid.
So we're talking advanced metalworking, potentially a written language in North America over 100,000 years ago.
It really seems that way. It's like rewriting history as we know it. So tell me, what does this artwork actually depict?
On one side, there's a woman wearing a headdress, and her arm is raised. She's holding a child who is also wearing a crown.
Interesting. What about the other side?
On the other side, you have a crouching animal, long ears, claws, and a frayed tail. And there's another animal that looks kind of like a horse.
It's like a window into a lost world.
Ah.
But wait, there's more, right? Wasn't there another find in Illinois, something about a hook and ring?
You're right. In 1851, another well drilling operation in Illinois, this one 120 feet down, brought up a copper hook and wing.
Okay, and what does that tell us?
Again, it suggests sophisticated metalwork in the distant past.
So we have two separate finds in Illinois, both pointing to advanced craftsmanship far earlier than we thought possible. All right, my mind is officially blown, but I'm ready for more. Where do we go from here?
Well, let's shift gears a bit. Let's head over to California, specifically Table Mountain.
Table Mountain.
Yes. It's become quite a hotbed for controversial discoveries, and its unique geology plays a big part in that.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about Table Mountain and what makes it such a puzzle for archaeologists.
So picture this. You have a mountain capped with volcanic basalt, formed from ancient lava flows.
Okay.
Beneath that basalt, there's a layer of gravel, remnants of an ancient riverbed. And within this gravel layer, miners started finding some really, really curious things.
Like what? Give me the details.
Well, in 1863, a human jawbone was discovered.
A human jawbone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then in 1857, they found a portion of a human skull.
Okay.
But perhaps the most famous or infamous discovery from Table Mountain is the Calaveras skull, found in 1866.
The Calaveras skull. I've heard of this. It was supposedly incredibly old, right?
Incredibly old. It was found encased in gravel under 40 feet of that volcanic basalt, right next to a petrified conifer that was estimated to be 60 to 80 feet long.
Wow, that definitely suggests great age.
And chemical analysis showed that the skull was fossilized.
Okay, but wasn't there some debate about whether the Calaveras skull was a genuine ancient find or a hoax?
Oh, absolutely. The controversy surrounding this skull has raged for over a century. Some researchers say that it's a modern skull, planted as a joke, while others insist it's the real deal, a genuine artifact that could completely rewrite the history of human presence in North America.
So we have this incredibly old skull, found alongside other fossilized remains, buried deep under volcanic rock. It's quite a puzzle. But it sounds like this pattern, finding human remains and artifacts that seem way too old for where they are, isn't just limited to Table Mountain.
Nope, not at all. These discoveries are popping up all over North America, and they're all raising questions about what we think we know about the past.
Okay, I am on the edge of my seat. What other out-of-place finds await us on this deep dive? Where are we headed next? So last time we were talking about all these incredible finds. They just don't seem to fit with our current understanding of history. It's like so much for a neat and tidy timeline, right?
Yeah, and as we kind of dig deeper into this world of out-of-place artifacts, it raises some really big questions.
Like what?
Like, if these objects are as old as they seem, how do we even begin to reconcile them with what we know about, like, geology and archaeology and the accepted timelines for all that?
That's the big question, isn't it? I mean, some people claim these objects are millions of years old. And if that's true, we're not just talking about tweaking the timeline a bit. We're talking about a complete overhaul of how we understand the past.
Exactly. It really leads us down some pretty intriguing paths, you know? For instance, what about the idea of, like, advanced prehistoric civilizations?
Okay, yeah. What if there were civilizations way before recorded history? Cultures with technologies that we've only just recently developed?
It does sound kind of like a sci-fi novel, doesn't it? But is it really so impossible?
So you're saying there could have been these civilizations flourishing millions of years ago with advanced knowledge of metalworking, engineering, even forms of energy we haven't even dreamed of yet. It's an amazing idea.
It is a tantalizing thought.
It makes you think about all those ancient myths and legends, right? About lost civilizations with incredible powers. Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu. What if they were more than just myths?
That they were echoes of a distant past, one we've completely forgotten.
Exactly.
Well, while those myths are definitely fascinating, you know, we do have to tread carefully here. We need to be able to separate the mythology from tangible evidence.
Right.
You know, I think the challenge with this whole idea of advanced prehistoric civilizations really lies in connecting the dots, so to speak, finding those solid links between these legendary cultures and the artifacts we're discussing.
So it can't just be a cool story. It has to be backed up by evidence.
Yeah.
All right, I get it. Well, what about another theory that people sometimes throw around? What about ancient aliens?
Yes. The ancient astronaut hypothesis.
Yeah, could that explain these objects?
Well, it's certainly popular. I mean, when you find something like the Koso artifact, you know, it's tempting to think, well, aliens.
The Koso artifact. Remind me what that one was again?
It was that device that resembled a modern spark plug, encased in rock that's estimated to be 500,000 years old.
Oh, yeah, right. Or how about that metal screw from Nevada? The one that's supposed to be 20 million years old. If humans weren't around to create those things, then who was?
Well, of course, with any extraordinary claim, we need extraordinary evidence. The alien theory is definitely intriguing. But I think it's essential to explore every other possibility before we jump to extraterrestrial explanations.
Okay, so if not advanced prehistoric humans, and if not aliens, then what are some other possible explanations for these seemingly impossible artifacts? I mean, is there any way to make sense of them within our current understanding of history?
Well, one possibility is that the artifacts themselves or the layers they were found in have been misdated.
Misdated? But how is that even possible? Don't we have, like, really sophisticated methods for dating these things?
We do. Dating methods are incredibly advanced these days, but they're not perfect. There's always a margin for error, and sometimes those margins can be pretty significant.
So you're saying that what we think is a million years old might actually be much younger. But what about those artifacts that have been analyzed multiple times by different researchers using different techniques, and they still come back with these incredibly old ages?
Yeah, that's a good point, and it's why these finds are so puzzling. Another possibility is that we've misinterpreted the nature of the objects.
Wait, so you're saying some of them might not actually be man-made? That they're just natural formations that happen to look like something we would have created?
Exactly. Geological processes can create some pretty intricate shapes, some that can be very deceptive. You remember those faces on Mars?
Oh, you mean the ones that turned out to be just shadows and rock formations?
Exactly. Our brains are wired to see patterns, you know, even where they don't exist. It's easy to see a familiar shape in a rock and just automatically assume it must have been made by human hands.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I guess it's possible that some of these artifacts are actually just products of nature's artistry, not some ancient human's ingenuity.
Right.
But what about the human remains? Skeletons? I mean, we can't just dismiss those as natural formations.
You're right. The human remains are definitely the most challenging to explain. But even then, there are a few possibilities.
Okay, I'm listening. What could explain human remains being found in places they just shouldn't be? Millions of years in the past, I mean.
Well, one possibility is misidentification.
Misidentification.
Yeah.
You mean like maybe the scientists got it wrong and the bones weren't actually human after all?
It can happen, especially when you're dealing with bones that are fragmented or heavily fossilized. It can be tricky to determine the exact species, even for experts.
Okay, I can see that. But what about the cases where the skeletons were very clearly identified as human? What explains those?
Those are the cases that really demand the most scrutiny. And they might point to geological processes that we don't fully understand yet.
Wait, so you're saying it's possible for human remains to somehow end up in rock layers that are millions of years older than they should be? How is that even possible?
It might not be as far-fetched as it sounds. Geological events, things like earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, or even glaciers, they can move things around in ways that can really mess with the traditional layering of rock strata.
So it's conceivable that human remains could be, transported from a relatively young layer to a much older one through some freak geological event.
It's one possibility, and it shows just how complex it can be to determine the exact origins of materials found in these kind of situations, especially when you're dealing with rock formations that have been subjected to massive forces over huge amounts of time.
Wow, this is really making me rethink everything I thought I knew about Earth's history and human evolution. It's like the ground is literally shifting beneath our feet.
Well, that's what's so exciting about science, isn't it? We're always testing what we think we know, pushing those boundaries, constantly refining our understanding based on new evidence.
So what's next? I mean, where do we go from here? How do we even begin to decide which of these theories, if any of them, is the most likely explanation for all these strange artifacts?
That's where the real work comes in. We need more research, more analysis, more collaboration between experts. This isn't just an archaeology puzzle. We need geologists, anthropologists, maybe even physicists and engineers.
It sounds like we need everyone to come to the table, bringing all their different areas of expertise to try and figure this out.
Exactly. I think we need to be willing to challenge our assumptions, even the ones we hold most dear, to entertain the possibility that we might be wrong about some pretty fundamental things.
But at the same time, we got to be careful, right?
Yeah.
We can't just jump to conclusions based on evidence that's incomplete or ambiguous. It's a tricky balance.
It is. We need a good dose of skepticism, but we also need to stay open to the possibility that something truly revolutionary might be out there waiting to be discovered.
Okay, so what's the takeaway for our listeners? I mean, what do we want them to do with all this information about strange artifacts and all these mind-blowing theories?
More than anything, we want them to think critically. Don't accept anything at face value.
Yeah, whether it comes from mainstream science or from some fringe theory out there.
Exactly. Do your own research, explore different sources, weigh the evidence yourself.
And don't be afraid to dig deep. Look for both supporting and contradictory information.
Right. Ask questions, challenge assumptions, even the ones that experts are putting forward. That's how science really moves forward.
And remember, this whole search for knowledge is a journey. What we consider truth today might be revised tomorrow, or even completely overturned when new discoveries come to light.
So stay curious, stay engaged, and keep exploring. The mysteries of the past are still out there, waiting to be unraveled.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, but there's so much more out there. Welcome back to The Deep Dive. We spent the last 2 parts of this deep dive exploring a collection of just incredible, strange artifacts.
Yeah.
Coins, skulls, footprints, even objects that look like modern technology, and all found in places and time periods where they just shouldn't exist.
It really makes you think.
So we've been considering all these different theories, trying to make sense of these objects.
Right.
Could they be evidence of advanced prehistoric civilizations, ancient aliens?
Right.
Or maybe even geological processes that we just don't fully understand yet?
It's been a lot to unpack.
It really has.
Yeah.
So for this last part, I want to kind of shift gears a bit.
Yeah.
Let's say, just for the sake of argument, that some of these artifacts are genuine. What would that mean for how we understand human history? Like, how would it change the story of who we are, where we come from?
That's the big question, isn't it? I mean, if we're really talking about rewriting the whole timeline of human civilization, stretching it back hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of years,
Yeah.
it's not just about, adjusting a few dates in a textbook. It's about fundamentally changing how we view human potential, like the trajectory of our development as a species.
Right. Imagine civilizations rising and falling long before ancient Egypt or Mesopotamia or the Indus Valley.
Right.
What knowledge might those cultures have had? What technologies could have been lost to time and then rediscovered over and over throughout history?
Yeah, it raises questions about the cyclical nature of civilizations. Like, were there dark ages and golden ages way back then, too?
Yeah.
Did ancient humans achieve things we can't even imagine yet?
And what about evolution? I mean, if modern humans, or even human-like beings, existed millions of years ago, that really throws a wrench into everything we think we know about human origins.
For sure. It suggests a much longer and more complex evolutionary journey than the one we're taught. It might even point to, like, parallel human lineages.
Wow.
You know, some that might have developed incredible abilities far earlier than others, only to vanish from the fossil record completely.
The mysteries just keep piling up.
They do.
And it's not just, biology and evolution that would be affected.
No.
Think about geology. If we find objects made by humans in rock layers that are hundreds of millions of years old, it forces us to really question what we think we know about how those layers form.
Right, the timescales involved.
Yeah. Maybe even some basic geological principles.
Yeah, it could be a complete paradigm shift affecting every area of science.
It's huge.
Yeah.
But even beyond science, think about the philosophical questions this all brings up.
Yeah.
If we're not the first or even the only intelligent species on this planet, it opens up a whole world of possibilities about other civilizations.
Past and present.
Yeah. Existing out there in the vastness of space and time.
Makes you feel pretty small, doesn't it?
It does. It makes you wonder about consciousness and, parallel universes, even the ultimate fate of intelligent life.
Big questions.
It's humbling and awe-inspiring to think we could be part of something much bigger than we ever imagined.
It is.
But we have to be careful too, right?
Of course.
As cool as all these ideas are, we have to stay grounded in the evidence. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. It's good to be skeptical, to approach these things with a critical eye.
Absolutely. The burden of proof is on the people making these claims.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we can't just shut down. We can't be afraid to ask questions, to be open to the possibility that what we think we know might be wrong, or at least incomplete.
There's still so much to learn, so many mysteries out there to unravel.
For sure. That's the whole point of science, isn't it?
Yeah. It's an ongoing process of discovery.
Yeah.
What we think is true today could be revised or even overturned completely tomorrow when new evidence comes to light.
That's what makes it so fascinating.
It really is. So for everyone listening who has been on this journey with us, exploring these strange artifacts and all these amazing ideas, I just want to say one last thing.
Okay.
Don't just take our word for it. Do your own research. Explore the sources, read up on all this incredible research, talk to people, and form your own conclusions.
Absolutely. And remember, this deep dive is just the beginning.
Yeah.
Keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep your eyes open for the extraordinary. Who knows what's out there waiting to be discovered?
Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.